In February 1818, by a creek called the Tuckahoe in Talbot County, Maryland, a legend was born, Frederick Douglass. His original name was Frederick Augustus Washington Bailey. Later, he changed his surname to Douglass. He knew little of his birthday, but thought it to be in 1817. However, slave records show that he was born to a slave named Harriet in 1818. He also took the 14th day of February as his birthday. He had never met any slaves that knew of their actual birthday. Douglass himself, as with all African Americans in the South, was born into slavery. He knew his mother, but the relationship was distant, both in the figurative and literal sense, because she lived on a distant plantation. Frederick Douglass never knew his father, but he believed that he was a white man, and probably his own master. Since his mother and father were not available to raise him, he was brought up by his grandmother. He had led a fun, playful, and carefree life until about age 6, when he inevitably entered the life of an actual slave. At first, young Frederick was forced to be the companion and caretaker of the plantation owner's daughter. By 7 years of age, however, he had already experienced brutal whippings and other punishments. A few years later, he tried to escape, but was discovered and jailed. Nevertheless, he attempted to escape when he was 20 and succeeded. In 1825, Douglass learned to read. Never did he imagine that he would soon become the most important Black American leader of the 19th century. As an author, orator, and publisher, Frederick Douglass promoted the freedom from slavery, civil rights, and universal suffrage. On one occasion, he gave a speech in Nantucket, and it inspired Harvard students, who in turn encouraged him to write. As a result, he authored several influential books, including The Life and Times of Frederick Douglass. In that book, Douglass narrates his life from the perspective of a slave, which opened the eyes of many white American readers to the injustice and horrors of slavery. He also established a newspaper called the North Star. In that newspaper, he published extensive descriptions of slave life. Because of his books, many white Americans began to understand how unfair and cruel slavery was. The cultivation of such public opinion allowed President Lincoln to issue the Emancipation Proclamation, which freed all slaves in the southern states. That proclamation was what Frederick Douglass had been trying to accomplish his whole life. In that way, Lincoln's actions can be considered one of the greatest achievements of Frederick Douglass's life. The actions of Frederick Douglass helped others and improved American life because his writing, publishing, and most of all speaking contributed to important advances in civil rights, suffrage, and freedom for all humans.